Good evening.
Good evening,
Don't normally
Stephen.
say
I don't
that,
have got my glasses on
you
tonight.
have-
No, I'm struggling. My eyes have got really bad over the last
That's because you're
few
getting old,
months.
dude. I know we always do this where we kind
No.
of sit here looking at each other.
You make me feel uncomfortable always.
That's my feet, sorry. But we've got
I know.
two guests with us tonight.
I know. I feel honoured. I do, genuinely.
We've got the lovely Sharon. Hi, Sharon. And we've got Neil.
Thank you for inviting me.
Hi.
Hello.
Who are they?
Sharon, first of all, tell us about who are you and what organisation are you from?
Just really
Oh,
quickly. Sorry,
go
I
on.
always do this.
You
Would
always
you like to explain how we got to this point?
No.
On a serious note, about where you went that day.
Well, yeah, but should we let him explain first?
Okay, sorry. All right.
Yeah, go on then.
Sorry.
Go on, Sharon. Tell us who
Sharon.
you're from.
So I'm Sharon Berry, and I'm the founder and CEO of Storybook Dads, which is a charity that helps imprisoned parents, that used to be just dads, but it's dads and mums now, to keep in touch with their children by sending them recordings of themselves reading bedtime stories for their children. So that's what it is in a nutshell. Originally started in Dartmoor Prison 21 years ago, and now it's in 100 prisons throughout England and Wales and Scotland.
Dartmoor Prison's scary, actually, like from to look at because it's on the moor, obviously, and everything like that. Neil's like, yep.
Is that from experience?
No.
You sure, Stephen?
No.
You did get arrested one day.
We don't have to talk about that now. So, and now I'll say, obviously, for me, I think this is flipping phenomenal. Like this, and I actually visited a really weird story, just really quickly. Sorry, Neil, just really, really quickly. So it was my birthday, my last year. We were on this this year, sorry, and we were on this little treasure map quest thing, and we drove past Dartmoor Prison and past the visitor centre. I'd never been in there, and it looked classic Cornish, little bit crap. But maybe interesting. Maybe interesting. So we went in, and it was phenomenal in there. And of course, looking around, there was a little leaflet about Storybook Dads. And do you know what hit me for? Is it hit me for 6? Is that the saying?
For
4. No, it's not. So it hit me really hard because, I've said before, it is 6.
No,
I know he's just winding me up. He thinks it's funny.
Sharon was thinking about it.
And I've very nearly been to prison before, and I did the whole kind of packing your bags and saying goodbye to the kids and wondering if I was gonna when or if I was gonna see them again or whatever it might be, and it completely blew me away. I'd never considered that whole aspect of it before of being a dad. And specifically a dad, I know there's Storybook mums as well, but being a dad in prison, how that affects your mental health, and also, how you would carry on that bond. And then even more so during COVID, when I read that there was no in-person visits or anything like that. I mean, can you imagine that? We think we had it hard. It was horrendous, and that's why I thought, oh my God, we need to speak to Storybook Dad / mums, and here we are. We've got Sharon, and then we got.
Should we speak to Neil?
Yeah,
he's sat
Neil.
there looking like an airline pilot.
He does.
He's ready to take off.
DJ.
Or an air traffic controller or something like that.
DJ Neil, tell us.
Yeah, if my career choices probably went that way, I might not have been sat here tonight.
Well, you would have missed out speaking to us.
Exactly. So yeah, I'm Neil, and I'm a former inmate at Dartmoor Prison, and that is where I met Sharon. I met her first when I was doing a story for my 2 kids. So I've got 2 young kids myself, and I'd been at Dartmoor for only a couple of weeks when I met Sharon, when I was doing a story for them. And I said to her that I'd love to come work up here. And then we had a little chat. And luckily, like my crime and things like that fitted the profile because it was a white collar crime. And yeah, the next week I started working for Storybook Dads as a video
inside
editor.
prison.
And the editing centre was in Dartmoor Prison. And so I think there was sort of 8 or 9 of us at one point, wasn't there?
8 or 9 of you editing?
Yeah, because it was we did the editing for all the prisons, so every prison in the country near enough send their stories into Dartmoor, and yeah, we
So
just
when your
sometimes
time was up,
snowed under literally.
when your time was up, did they let you out, or did you have to stay in prison to do the video editing?
I still do it now from home, but I get to do it from the comfort of my house.
Amazing.
That is
yeah.
that's amazing.
Yes.
That really is amazing.
So Neil, that's
For us from home. So he's still a video editor, but now he can do it from home instead of doing it from within Dartmoor prison.
Yeah, it's a lot more comfortable doing it from home, I must
a
say.
bit warmer as well, I imagine, maybe.
Yeah, it was a little bit cold in
you
the
see-
building we had at Dartmoor.
It was. But we did used to have fun, though. You had an atmosphere of, I think we had about 6 or 8 prisoners who come to work with us every day, and they do all the production from all the other stories from around the country. And you're talking about 3,500 a year that we get through.
Wow.
There's a really nice atmosphere, all sort of helping each other. And, if it's audio, they'll put sound effects in. They might say to each other, "What noise does an aardvark make?" I don't know. Just having fun like that and just supporting each other.
It was a lot of fun.
You've opened a can of works.
Yeah,
can
it's a
of
nice place to
now.
work.
Don't ask Steve.
Sharon, what noise does an aardvark make, just out of
No.
interest?
To say, well, nobody knows, so use any of the sound effects in the folder because there's certainly not a child.
So what would you use then, Neil, if it was an aardvark and you an aardvark?
I'm not.
Come on,
I'm
you're
not
Come on,
sure.
Neil.
I'd probably
Come
have picked
on.
some kind of like scratching noise or something. I tried try not. I don't know. We used to just pick some random ones for some random things.
So they were pre-recorded, or did you have to make them yourselves?
No, so they would come in. We'd get like the raw footage of, say, Dad. Say if it was a video, we get the raw footage of Dad sat there reading the story, and then we'd put like an the cover is like an intro, so the book cover, and then we'd put the book pages, like the images in, as Dad was reading it to kind of bring the story to life for them. And then both, you got to kind of balance up getting, Dad on screen enough of the time as well and stuff like that. And then, it just kind of make a really nice package.
Yeah, did we have to pre-record the sound effects? Because we had a bank of sound effects. We have to bang coconut things together.
Well,
did we, Neil?
Yeah, well, I feel like that would have been more fun, to be fair. You could have, I think I'd be quite good at making sound effects.
But you just...
Yeah. But as like a work environment, felt like when we went to work there every day, it was like you weren't in prison. It was just like a normal work environment. We had a great relationship with the rest of the staff that worked for Storybook Dads, and it's just a real nice thing to be doing.
So how long did you do it? Did you work for Storybook Dads in prison then for you?
14 months in prison.
I suppose the great thing about that is you could do 7 days a week. You wouldn't have to take, not like the laws when you're outside when you have to take, you can only work 3 hours and you can have a 20-minute break or something.
No, we were doing mainly sort of Monday to Thursday for a lot of sort of the time, and then we brought in the Friday when it got busy for Christmas stories, because like it is at the moment, Christmas stories coming out of our ears. So yeah, it was just great. I mean, if we could have done it 7 days a week, I would have loved to.
So Sharon, sorry.
Oh, go on, sorry.
No, sorry, there is a slight delay. My apologies. I was just going to say, where did the idea come from? How was it born?
I claim that it was my idea because it wasn't. Because we'd heard about a prison officer who'd done something years and years ago and had helped a prison to record a song on a tape for his kid and this kind of thing. So the idea had been happened before, but nothing had ever really developed from it. So I went to Channings Wood prison. And I was there as a teacher. We sort of trialed Storybook Dads for a little while, and it was successful, but it just fizzled out because there was no money. Then that's when I thought, well, it needs to, be started as a charity. I'd worked at BBC, or I'd volunteered at BBC Radio Devon for a while, so I'd learned to use audio editing software, so I was familiar with that. So it just started off as audio in the beginning. 2003. I started as a charity so that it could actually grow and expand. But I didn't know it would go and expand quite the way it has into 100 prisons. It wasn't a grand master plan. It was just an incremental thing that gradually happened. And when you work with the lads and you see how much it means to them, how much it means to them to when they hear back from their child and they say, oh, my little boy loved that CD, he plays it all the time, or tape, as it was back then. We used to send them out on cassette tapes. That's how worthwhile it was, how much it meant to the kids. And so it just kept growing. I mean, Neil, you've done quite a lot of stuff for your children, haven't you, in terms of recordings?
Yeah, and I think for the kids, it kind of like, everyone thinks kind of big grand gestures and presents and stuff like that is what kids want. But actually, when I was away, I found just them getting their stories. They used to look forward to it, and we used to do sort of other bits and pieces like comic books and stuff. They appreciated that more than anything because they get to see and hear Dad's face and voice and stuff like that all the time. And yeah, I think they really appreciate what they're getting, and it really helps kind of keep that bond with the children for certain.
Yeah. It's obviously quite difficult for a child to process properly.
Well, they don't. I mean, they don't really understand.
No. You're all right there, Steve?
No, it
you want
depends
to tell
on
everyone what you're up to?
No, it's fine. My watch just started beeping for some reason. I don't know why.
But yeah, so that's quite hard for them. It's obviously hard all round. I don't know how hard, but I'd imagine it's horrendously hard.
And Neil, I mean,
understand where you were, Neil.
Yeah,
I was going to say, did your children?
Kids,
I mean, they're a bit older now. Did they understand where you were?
Yeah, I mean, my eldest, sort of when I went away, was 5 and a bit, so for nearly 6. So there's no point hiding from him. He would have known anyway because we lived not far from Dartmoor Prison, so we knew what that place was. So when he came for a visit, he would have known anyway. So yeah, he was he knew all about it, and he kind of dealt with it in his own way. It was difficult for him. He went through the stage at the start of thinking it was really cool, and then when he realised that I wasn't coming back for a while, it then took a slightly different turn. But once things settled down and we got into like a routine with visits and stuff like that, it was fine. And he kind of dealt with it all right. And then my youngest, he was only about 13, 14 months old, so it's kind of like I've kept my bond with him. I used to speak to him every day and stuff like that, but it'll be something he'll never remember. So I think, for him, it won't really have had any lasting, like long-term effect. Whereas my eldest, I think he's, sometimes he just needs a bit of attention and talking.
Yeah.
Like he needs time to talk about it and talk about how it made him feel and all those things. So we do quite a lot of just talking.
That's good. So I imagine he'll go through all sorts of emotions as he gets older in that little sort of part of his life, sort of thinking about different things.
Yeah, but on the plus side, I think it's made us both kind of appreciate the more simple things, just time together and stuff like that, which, since I've been back, we've had a lot of time together. So
how long have you been back, Neil, just out of interest?
I've been back just over 3 months.
Okay. Oh, not long though.
No, not long. It's been been a whirlwind.
Do you want me asking how what was it like adapting back from sort of being in prison and to sort of back on being civvy?
It took a good 4 or 5 days for me to kind of adjust to stuff. I think I kind of tried to do too much in the first few days when I come out, and like a lot had changed since I had been away. Like I got divorced when I was away, so me and my ex-wife aren't together, so it was like me going to somewhere new and things like that as well. So, and then just kind of getting set up with stuff again, just simple things. But I had a great network of friends and stuff around me. Someone bought me a car, sort of, my parents helped with a lot of things, and friends. So I think I just tried to like do too much in the first few days, see everybody and do all these things. But once I had like a day out with the kids and stuff like that, I was fine. But it definitely took a few days.
I imagine it makes you appreciate the real small things in life. The real those just moments, especially with your kids.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that's the main thing.
When you first, just trying to understand, I guess, almost like life without Storybook Dads. Like when you first arrived in prison, how was that? I mean, I know it sounds like a really stupid question, but it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a scary place, a bit of a daunting place, to be honest. Like when first kind of get sent down, you end up at Exeter, which really not a great place. That would definitely not be on the TripAdvisor review list. It is pretty bad. And then, I was there for a couple of weeks and then went to Dartmoor. Dartmoor is a pretty daunting looking place from the outside, but on the whole, Dartmoor was a pretty calm environment, to be honest. But it's 200 odd years old, and it's drafty as hell, and it's just a really old prison. And yeah, it's obviously not a great environment to be in a lot of the time, apart from when I was at work. But it kind of is what it is, and you get into a bit of a routine and get on with it, really.
And what about your kind of headspace, I guess? Because, we talk about, I'm really trying to just, understand, I guess, the impact of something, like I mean, it may seem obvious to some. I mean, it wasn't obvious to me, really, which sounds quite stupid, but, I think we take a lot of things in life for granted, including our children, to be fair. And, not being with them, on top of all the other unimaginable stresses that must be there, apart, that's notwithstanding the regime in prison and the rules and all that kind of stuff and the loss of freedom. And, where's your head go when you're kind of like, when you're there?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like, your head kind of, you goes through real kind of roller coaster with it. Like initially, especially with all the other stuff falling apart, like outside, I think it's when I found things got easier, when I kind of accepted that everything going on the outside, I had no control over whatsoever anymore, and could influence very kind of minimally. I found once I kind of accepted the situation I was in, it became a lot easier, because I think for the first month, 6 weeks, maybe two couple of months, really, I just was in a bit of a, I was just in a bit of a, my head's just going at 300 mile an hour about all the stuff going on at home and those things, and you just can't kind of do anything about it. And that is really hard. And like you said, being away from the kids was the worst thing, because I think I'd been away for like 2 or 3 days maximum out of the whole time that my eldest was around. So, in 5 years, he'd always known me to be there. So, and I think knowing that I'd let them down was probably the hardest thing. But I'm quite an optimist, so I always try and think, right, how can I turn this into something positive? And that's, with working with Storybook Dads and then trying to get myself on a real good path for the future is what I tried to do. And
yeah, absolutely. And it's obviously that thing of, like you say, you're in that situation, you're not getting out, not unless you're planning a big elaborate, escape, right? So therefore, you've got to deal with it. And I imagine finding Storybook Dads was absolutely mind blowing, because I think, as I say, I got a suspended sentence effectively, so I was incredibly lucky. I don't know how I would have coped, at all. I got to say, actually, Neil, just really quickly, one of the things that's totally blown me away by you, and I hope you don't mind me saying this, is you don't look like a prisoner. Do you know what? That's been. I'm just sitting here going through my head, and because
it's
for
covered
some
in
reason,
tattoos, you can't actually see it. It's built
for some
like
reason,
6'6", like an outhouse.
I expected you to kind of come up on screen and be this great big kind of burly guy in a white vest and a shaved head, like and
got a Danny Dyer film.
Yeah, I suppose
there are plenty like that in there, aren't there, Neil? There are plenty like that.
I mean, I think because it was I come from a white collar crime sort of scenario, I was kind of different to a lot of people in that way, I suppose. But in that environment, though, I got on well with everybody from all different backgrounds and things like that. And we have people from all different backgrounds at Storybook Dads, and I've always been very, I talk to anybody.
Well, I know you're talking to us, yeah. So
that's one of the things that I was just going one of the things that we kind of loved about our job is that, it's a great leveler, really, where we worked. We had, we had a solicitor working for us. You can have a burglar. You can have, somebody who might, somebody who's been for manslaughter or whatever. But when you're in prison, you're all just in prison, and it doesn't really matter what you were on the outside. And it's a world within a world, isn't it, Neil? And it's very interesting to work in that environment, really.
Yeah,
and Neil
it is quite interesting
obviously
to have lived in that environment.
Yeah, exactly. For someone like Neil, it's very hard at first because you get lots of offenders who are repeat offenders, so they're kind of used to it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, they're used to being in and out. And for Neil, for his crime, just the one crime and going for the first one must have been quite terrifying when you first landed at Exeter prison. That's where people go at first. But you just learn to survive, I suppose, don't you? And get by.
Yeah, you just kind of get on with it and then try and look for the positives in each day, rather just don't focus on the small stuff, I found, and just kind of get your head down and do what you need to do, and focus, because there's people that don't have sort of guaranteed dates when they're going to be going home and stuff like that, or you find people that have been in for a very, very long time, and you kind of consider yourself lucky that actually I was only going to be away for, which it should actually, in the grand scheme of my life, only be a shortish period of time. So you just try and deal with it in a positive way.
So I remember, I think you said at the beginning, didn't you, that you found kind of Storybook Dads a couple of weeks into your sentence, didn't you? I mean, that must have been quite phenomenal. Like, what was do you remember what your first story was?
I think it was the old favourite that everybody does, is the Gruffalo.
Brilliant.
Yes.
And how was that, recording it, Neil? I imagine a little emotional, or?
Yeah, it's a little emotional, a little daunting at first. I think, if I was to watch my stories that I did back now from the start, it would be, I was a bit nervous, a bit cagey at first. And then, by the end, it was all laughs and jokes, and, it was different. So, yeah, and I found when people were doing their stories for their kids and stuff, you would see the same faces all the time that you were editing their stories, and you would see the same thing with them. It'd start off a bit nervous, the first couple of videos. Then it just gets a bit more natural. It's getting used to be in front of camera and stuff, isn't it?
Is there a certain amount of times a week you can do it, or can you do it as much as you wanted, or is there how does it work?
I think generally people do it sort of once a month, wasn't it?
Yeah, generally about once a month from other prisons, because there's only so much we can process.
Yeah.
At our department from all the other prisons. I mean, for our guys that were there, like Neil, for instance, he could do it a bit more often if he wanted to, because he was an editor and he worked for us. But usually, and I think if you did it too much, it would lose its value a little bit, really. Generally, from the other prisons,
once
they could
a
do it about
sweet
once.
Spot.
Yeah, roughly about that. But then we did have other projects as well at Dartmoor where, did you make a comic, Neil?
Yeah, I've done a comic.
Wow.
I did a couple of those. They're good fun.
The guys at Dartmoor, we had this special software, and they could just, make a comic with their child sort of superheroes in it, and photo pictures of their children and make them superheroes. Comic and print it off. For yours, Neil?
I did a Minecraft one, I think it was.
Amazing. There's a Minecraft film coming out, Neil. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
That has made your day, I can tell.
No.
My eldest is going to love that. But yeah, I did the Minecraft one, and then I helped out with other people doing theirs for their kids and stuff as well.
What is your background?
With the other guys, didn't you?
Neil, what is your background?
Criminal mastermind.
Say that. I'm glad you did, Sharon. Now, what did, because obviously video editing, okay, the software might have been there, and okay, you've got time in your hands to learn it, but you might not have been into it. What was it your job was before?
I mean, I owned my own company for years, which is kind of where my crime came from, to be honest. So, but I've always worked in the kind of technology space.
No.
But I've always been involved in technology, so the work that I did previously was involved in the technology sector. So I've always been kind of a techie savvy kind of person.
Sounds a little bit like you if you were going to go in prison, Pricey.
Yeah. Yeah, no, probably, yeah.
You'll be all right, mate.
I'll be all right, yeah. Yeah, but so, okay, so yeah, that makes sense. That makes absolute sense. So obviously you send them out to your kids, and then what? So, and then obviously I imagine when they come and visit or anything like that, it's just phenomenal because they're like over the moon. It's like, it's something to talk about as well. I don't imagine it's easy to kind of have things to talk about, because obviously there's probably a bit you want to shield them from, and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, I used to, especially for the last couple of months that I was at Dartmoor, we had the in-cell telephone, so I would be on the phone sometimes when they were watching the video and stuff, which was quite nice. But yeah, they'd always talk about it on visits and stuff like that, and on family days. Like my kids met some of the team from Storybook Dads and things like that, so they would kind of like when I was talking about people from work, they would know who I was talking about. So that was always good as well.
Amazing. Sorry, go on.
No, I just
you just breathing.
Yeah, I'm just a bit blown away by it.
Well, so was I. Yeah,
because when you first said to me about it, I was like, right, okay, and then I thought about it.
It's literally phenomenal.
It never even occurred to me anything like that.
No. Yeah, no. And it's the obvious things. Obviously, yeah, okay, you're going to prison. It's going to be tough, but actually, you wonder how tough. And look, there's going to be, and I'm like 95% sure that both of you have heard this before. There's going to be people that say, well, you committed a crime, so you've got to go in there and just get on with it. You shouldn't be doing all this crap, right? There's going to be idiots like that everywhere, right? And you had your freedom taken off you. That's huge. That you're there to do that time. That doesn't mean that you can't do other things, and so to anyone that says that, fuck you.
To be honest,
the police. It's a delay.
To be honest, if someone's been a victim of crime, you can kind of understand, their anger and and I think very often the public just don't know enough about prison. They think it's they're just sitting around having a good time and playing PlayStation. So they don't know that it's actually tough. The rhetoric always, isn't there, from the media, mainstream media,
yes.
Tough on crime, tough on the causes of crime, and that'll help to stop them doing it. And that's rubbish because it doesn't. What helps to stop reoffending, is rehabilitation. And it's only that the public are really like that because they don't know, I think. I didn't know before I went into prison. I thought the same as everybody else until you actually go and you see that these kind of programs can help help to reduce reoffending, which will help to reduce the taxpayers, have to pay for. So, and why people feel that way, and mostly it's because they're just ill-informed.
100%, and I say, look, imagine the other scenario, right? Neil goes into prison. Sorry, Neil, I'm only talking about you because you're here. Sorry. Neil goes into prison. Obviously he's mentioned he's had a divorce, which must have been incredibly difficult. He doesn't have anything to do with his kids. His kids don't remember who he is. He comes out. He's now in a situation that you've already said, Neil, that you've had to start from scratch. Imagine coming out, starting from scratch without your kids, obviously without your wife, and everything like that. The chances of you thinking, what's the fucking point? I'm just gonna do this or that, are so much more higher than going, right, do you know what? I've got a great relationship with my sons, and I now want to be a dad. Yes, okay, I've lost my wife, fine, but I need to have a home for them. They need to have a bedroom. I need to get myself a job. I need an income because I need to prepare, which you've got a reason. You've got a reason, and I think that's what it's about. You've had your freedom taken away. This is now your time to not make amends because you've done that. This is your time to move forward and move on from that, and I think it's phenomenal.
And I think it's about doing positive things, isn't it? Like positive change in what you're doing, and for the people that record the stories as well, it's for them to feel like they are having some kind of positive impact on their children. which is, for self-esteem and their mental health is a big thing. So it works on both sides, I think, is the person doing the story and for the kids on the other end, because it is tough on them. And, they're the kind of, they are the victims of it.
Forgotten victims as well.
That's the thing. It's easy for people to sell, you shouldn't have the freedom to be able to, do these stories for your kids. But take you out of the picture, the kids are only going to end up suffering even more. So, the chances of them offending must go up tenfold if they see their dad's an offender. If there's not a connection there when you come out, during that period and when you come out, because obviously when you come out there is less of a connection, there's probably more chance of them possibly going down that route maybe. And also, even if they don't, you can not have a good relationship.
Documented that helping to maintain family ties reduces reoffending. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
Neil being, I'm sure, you might call a typical offender. Not that that's, I don't mean anything by that, but, and he probably read to his children before you went, had a good relationship with your children, read to them before you went into prison. But for some of the guys we work with, they were never read to as kids, and they were never really read to their own children. They've come from these very difficult, chaotic backgrounds. So for them, it's like completely breaking new ground. You can usually tell, can't you, Neil, the ones who haven't read a story before, they're a bit shell-shocked, very often quite emotional and upset.
I bet.
It a couple of times, they realise how important it is, and they want to come back and do it again. So and it can be huge for some of these who've never read to their children. Maybe their reading isn't as sort of fluent as they'd like it to be, or as expressive. But once they've done it a few times and they get confident,
and people that can't read, we help them with that as well.
Where it's previously been a bit broken, so you can fix relationships.
That's what we're both going to basically say the same thing. Steve probably more eloquently than me.
Probably.
Just about. Do you get some sort of?
Do you want me to ask, or
do you get inmates that can't read?
Yeah.
No, we're basically going to ask the same question, but I can't ask questions as well as Steve.
Yeah, we get that a lot.
Yeah. And then we just what we do with them is like an assisted read, where you always with them would say a phrase of the story and they repeat it, and then so they just repeat the story, and then you take the mentor's voice out if you like. So
wow,
so
that's
people
phenomenal.
who can't read can take part.
Yeah,
really good.
It's just incredible to think, a fully grown adult can't read a story that because they haven't been taught how to. They haven't been brought up by the parents or but just been cared for.
Yeah.
They just don't know how to read it.
But again,
it's frightening. It's not very nice. Obviously, I know they've committed a crime. They're in jail. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah, but that's that, isn't it?
Yeah,
They're already in jail. That's their punishment. It's not like it's not then additional punishment when you're inside. That's. But I'm just thinking like that's almost like a second layer of support, isn't it? Because if you're teaching people, how to read or whatever it might be, again, that's going to decrease they've given them a reason. They could come out and go into a job and things like that. It is phenomenal.
Well, there are some programs in prisons. There's another charity that works in prison that helps to teach prisoners to read or improve their reading if they're very poor readers. There aren't that many totally illiterate prisoners, but there are quite a lot that may not be able to read very well or very confidently. So we're not an education department, but if if a wants to, and it's difficult for them to engage in those sort of programs. I mean, they haven't learned to read so far, and they're probably not going to do it now, But if they say, well, I'd like to do it because then I could read a story for my child, it's a really good incentive. It's a real good encouragement to actually engage in a reading program so that they can read to their child. So we've often found that wanting to read a story, being unable to and wanting to learn how to do it, they can do an assisted read to start with, where they just copy the phrase, but then go on to learn to read because, their children, what better reason to learn to read?
And also it's quite an emotional thing as well. When you read to kids, it's quite a connective thing. I remember when my kids are 22 and 18 now, but I used to read to them and I used to read to them in different voices. And
I love doing voices.
My youngest would be like, just read, Dad, and I'd put on the funny voices for everyone, and read slowly and quietly, and he'd be like, right, Alf's like, right, we're not having this. You stop reading. We're stopping like this. But it's the whole just the connection, is that emotional thing. And I imagine that's probably quite difficult for some inmates that aren't emotionally aware,
or are scared to show them. Not scared, but
they don't know how to show it,
or even a taboo about being, non-burly in prison,
like Burly Neil.
Yeah,
Burly me. Yeah, I mean, people don't like to show an emotion in that environment because it's kind of seen as a weakness, isn't it? I suppose in that type of scenario. So I know I was, you kind of put on a bit of a brave kind of mask all the time when you're kind of out and about. But yeah, you do get some quite emotional videos sometimes that are difficult, and especially I think this time of year where the realization is that you're not going to be around at Christmas, and it's sometimes we got to try and make this make it seem a bit more cheerful than what it is. There's a few sometimes which are like,
you do get quite a few, don't you, Neil? You do get quite a few, don't you, Neil, where they break down and cry, the prisoners, usually when they're saying their little greeting at the beginning to their child, because they say a little greeting at the beginning, and they often do break down and cry. Take some time to pull themselves together, and I think it's because it's like you say, they have to put on a brave front on when they're out and about on the wings. You have to be quite macho and quite brave, and then they come into a Storybook Dads environment, whether it's in our jail or in one of the other 100 prisons, and they can let down that sort of macho, start thinking about their kids, and they often not well. It's quite a lot of times they cry, don't they? They can end up quite sort of having to sort of cut bits out.
It definitely does happen. And, sometimes they get halfway through a story and they're struggling a bit with the emotion of being away. And it's one of the things that kind of drives me to make sure that we always do a really good job. So, that kid receives something really nice from Dad. And I've always tried to make the videos and the stories as if I was doing it for mine. So if I'd be happy with my kids receiving it, then I'm happy for them to receive it.
When in prison, then, you were saying about, when you showing emotion isn't sort of a done thing. So obviously we started this because of men's mental health, and we're talking to you guys and various people. What is it like in prison? Is it, because at the moment it's really bad, sort of, it's getting better, isn't it? People can, for men to talk about emotion and that.
Yeah.
Is it, is it, I'm like, is it bad in prison then? Because that's the way it's sort of, the way it's always sort of seen in films and in programs and that. This macho sort of environment.
I think in general, sort of out and about on the wings and stuff like that, yeah, it is people don't talk about their emotions and what's going on. It's just everything's fine type of scenario. But I think I had a couple of friends that were people that they'd open up to me about what they had going on. I'd open up to them. So you kind of find maybe one or two people that you can actually be real with. And obviously the people with Storybook Dads and things like that. But I was fortunate, I had a great relationship with everyone there, so I could speak about what was going on a bit. But in general, people, there's just a mask on. And then when you're behind your door, when you're banged up, that's probably where your kind of real emotion comes out.
Can you talk to the prison sort of officers and that? Is there a way you can... Is that not?
You'd get, and to be fair, at Dartmoor, they did have some really good officers, and there was ones that I got on really well with. Funny enough, I actually saw one in Plymouth the other day. I'd had a chat with him, and it was nice to say hello to him. That's
probably quite weird seeing someone that was in that environment, and then did you feel yourself going sort of morning, sir, or sort of
a little bit, but it was he saw me first and said hello to me. So,
oh, you get it.
But yeah, I mean, there's a couple of people you could speak to, but not always. You pick or choose the right ones to kind of if you need something or if you need a conversation.
I suppose it's anything in life, but you work out who you can talk to and who you can't, and who to turn to and who not to, and it's just. it's just a little bit more concentrated in where you were.
Exactly. It's sometimes it's just
yeah,
and it's like, to be fair, like everyone, the team at Storybook Dads, anything that any of us needed help with, so anything to do with the prison, that everyone would always be really helpful and phone up and speak to the right person or whatever for us. So that's where we had a lot of our support, I think.
Neil, I hope you don't. Sorry, go on.
I think in prison in general, I mean, there's quite a lot of stuff in the press at the moment, isn't it, about prisons and overcrowding, and and I think and they started having all the public cuts, and there's a terrible prison officer shortage and a difficult retention rate. Officers are working under a lot of stress. There's a lot of them off sick at any one time, and then when the ones are off sick, it puts more stress on the others. And I think they get sympathy fatigue because they just work under terrible pressure now because the prison service is just so underfunded. There's just not enough staff.
They can't win, can they? Really, and obviously, they're really there to just ensure that my understanding is that the rules are upheld and that everyone's safe, really, to a kind of basic level of safety. It's a bit like, it's not like it at all, but hopefully you can see the connection. It's a bit like teaching assistants and teachers, isn't it? Teaching assistants nowadays are being asked to do more and more and more like teachers, but actually not get any money. Can we ask our prison officers to be counsellors or therapists or things like that? Obviously I understand, I'm an advocate, we're advocates for men's mental health, but it's, I do get it. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was going to say, Neil,
a lot of young people with that in mind, and that's actually, they say you can change people's lives, and to get young people to enrol as prison officers, and they just not exactly counsellors, but certainly be there and be a listening ear to sometimes prisoners, but they end up not having time to do that, and I think they find that really disappointing. They just end up as a key turner, and that can be.
Basically, yeah. There's a lot of young prison officers now, isn't there, that are like, you find it a bit like, especially when, I'm in my late 30s, and it's like, you're being told what to do by someone in their early 20s, and it's a bit of a weird dynamic. With, some of the older prison officers, is a bit more easier to listen to them because, they're a bit more, you kind of respect them a bit more because they are older.
Absolutely. I was good. Yeah, and that must be odd, I imagine, because you're, like you say, it's, especially if you want to talk about life experiences and things like that. It's a bit of a difficult one.
Yeah, that's probably what some of the newer ones lack, is some life experience than anything. But, most of them are fine.
I know this is a hypothetical situation, but, imagine Storybook Dads just wasn't around. How do you see your time and your life being different?
I have thought about it before, actually. I honestly don't know what I would have done. Yeah, I would have just been doing some job that I really didn't enjoy. So it was, for me, it gave me a real solid purpose. Whereas I think just doing a normal job in that scenario would have, working in the kitchens or something like that, would have just been an existence.
What about your mental health?
I think that would have been a lot worse, because I think I wouldn't have felt like I'd have been able to do anything positive for the kids. So yeah, I think it would have. Yeah, it scares me to think what kind of position that I would have been in. But thank God.
Storybook Dads definitely helped you to keep you on like a good sort of even keel then with your mental health.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, it was really, really important for me. Obviously, working for the charity. Yeah, it was huge.
How many other employees are there outside of the prison?
Do you mean ex-prisoners?
Yeah, ex-prisoners, yeah.
What do you mean?
Or just any ex-prisoners, or sort of, there's obviously we've got yourself and Neil, and you said about 7 or 8 others in the prison. Is there anybody that does work on the outside?
There's 11 paid staff, got 3 or 4 ex-prisoners who used to edit for us in prison, of which Neil is one, who do the editing from home. So there's 10 sort of, not full-time, but staff, and then 4 ex-prisoners who work from home. Because it's not forever until their feet and, they're established again. So, yeah, at the moment. and 10 ordinary staff.
What's the next? What's the dream with it, Sharon? Where are you looking to take this? I know you're obviously limited by funds, resources, and no doubt a ton of bureaucracy. A word I can never say, but hopefully you understood what I was trying to say. Yeah, what would you? Where are you wanting to take it?
To be honest, there's only about 120 prisons in the country, and we're in 100 of them. So I think, we have helped other countries have copied our model. Several other countries have copied our model. The armed forces copied our model. So there were Storybook soldiers, Storybook wings, Storybook waves. Although they don't do it anymore because, of course, when we started work with Storybook soldiers back in 2007, well, we trained them. There was no such thing as FaceTime or this kind of thing, really. It was unheard of. But of course, now, service personnel can often just FaceTime their kids and things like that. Maybe not if they're away on a submarine or something. We just keep on doing more of just the same as what we're doing, just try and enable more prisoners to take part. Sometimes it was working in a prison, then it's dropped off because a couple of staff members have left or something. It's never just an even keel in prison, ever. So no. I think just keep on doing what we're doing. And then I'm going to retire in about 4 years anyway. So
hey!
There's somebody else to do what they want with it.
Were you operating during COVID, Sharon?
Yeah, we did. During COVID, what happened was, everything stopped for a while. And then some prisons were they were still able to access a few of their prisoners. A lot of prisons couldn't for a long time, and we certainly couldn't at Dartmoor or Channings Wood, which is Newton Abbot, where we also worked. Just locked up all day long. Were you in prison during COVID, Neil? You weren't, were you? Neil?
No, I missed out on that, luckily.
Damn
it.
But we still had sort of a lot of the 23. We still had a lot of the 23-hour bang up and stuff like that, though. Weekends and stuff.
Even when it got back into normality in the community, it wasn't like that in prison. They were still locked up for quite a long time afterwards. So
23
what we actually
hours,
did
you
for
just
a while.
Say? Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you, Sharon. Did you just say 20?
Yeah, we had loads of weekends like that.
In COVID. Yeah, that's quite normal. That's normal in a lot of prisons still.
Flipping normal.
Yeah, that is the normal regime in a lot of prisons.
Dude.
If you're not working, that's norm still in a lot of prisons, isn't it?
And it's small, isn't it? What sort of size is it? So I know we're going off piste here, and I've just interrupted you. I do apologise.
If I put my arms out to the side, I could touch.
Your arms are massive, though. You're like an aircraft, though. Like a Boeing.
It's aircraft stuff on. Yeah. But what we did when COVID hit, we thought, well, what are we going to do? Because they can't get have any visits, kind of introduced something else called Storybook Families. So we kind of reversed it. So what we did was we got families to record their children on their phones, send them to us, and then we burnt them on DVDs, slide them under the prisoner's door so they could play it on something so they could see their families that way. So we did that for a little while. We did a reverse thing for a little while, which was quite nice. COVID went on for quite a long time, and hard for families. Even when they started reintroducing visits, it's in the visits hall are quite strange. You've got the prisoner sits, and then the family sit opposite on the chairs and they can't move. They had to sit on a different table and wear a mask, so they couldn't really see each other or hear what they were saying. So it was a bit rubbish. Yeah.
I've only ever visited someone in prison once, and it's already very controlled, isn't it? And it's very daunting, I think, and I can't even imagine what it must be like to be on the other side, or to visit someone that's close family or anything like that. So undoubtedly what you're doing is absolutely phenomenal. I'll ask a quick question, but you might not be able to answer it, so just feel free to tell me to bugger off. No, not that question.
Not that question.
So do you ever get, when you're editing, any people that are saying things that they shouldn't be saying, like, any kind of secret messages or anything like that?
There's stuff we've had to take out,
experience
like
of
swearing. It's usually swearing we have to take out is the
If they
main
swear,
one.
Yeah. It's that fucking Gruffalo.
if they muck it up,
Yeah,
you
basically,
know,
yeah.
if they're reading it, if they read it and they go, "Oh, for fuck's sake," be like that, you know, might have to take that out.
Yeah.
But generally,
Nothing else,
But
like
no, they
people
don't. I
that-
mean,
sending out
that's
secret messages.
Like send
I've
over
never
the
really
that's
seen
what
drone.
anything.
we
Wink.
did when we went X marks the spot kind of thing. But you know, we do have to listen to it just in case they're going to do a secret message. But I've never known it in 20 years for anybody to do a secret message.
Neil looks like he knows something.
Yeah, look at Neil. Like, oh,
Very
you
quiet,
don't know the
isn't he?
code, Sharon. You don't know the code.
It's secret talk.
I don't know. Sharon's probably more prison savvy than I am. After working in various ones for years and years.
20 years in prison. Yeah.
Obviously, yeah. I mean, we're.
I was going to say
Go on.
for Neil, you know, like it's amazing how he has coped with everything, and you know, because I'm me saying Neil, but you lost your house as well, didn't you? You had to sell your house for to proceeds of crime, like you said, he's stuck in there. His marriage is disintegrating. You know, his track is being taken. He's got to try and find sort stuff out, and you're so helpless in prison. You're so helpless, and like you say, in Dartmoor. Now they have got cells in phones, and they only just got that cells. But at Dartmoor, for such a long time, you just have to queue on a landing, don't you, Neil? With like loads of other guys, you can't use the phone, you can't sort anything out. So it was really tough.
10 minutes
for Neil,
if you're lucky.
Are we saying that they've got a cell phone? See what I did there? That was a classic dad.
Oh, God.
Oh, he's just gone full circle, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but when he was trying to sort stuff out, like the house when we're going through the house sale and stuff like that, and you're trying to deal with that I'd get like 1 10-minute phone call if I was lucky. Like it was difficult. So then when the phones went into the sales, that was like a complete game changer. Luckily, I got that just before Christmas last year, literally 2 days before Christmas. We got it.
What do you like to use
on the wing? You could use it as much as you wanted then.
I'll be on the
you're only
frickin'
spending
blower
your
all
own
day.
money. I spent a fortune.
Well, because you have to obviously pay a lot more, I imagine.
Yeah, I'd spend
a premium rate, and you can't just phone anybody up. You've got so many numbers that they have to be authorised. Do you know what I mean? And so you can only phone a certain number of people, like
and then the phone calls can be listened to and all sorts, and like
you have to be careful.
The phone calls.
Jeez. Well, understandably,
yeah.
You know, Neil.
Yeah. No, I was good. I always remember though when I was on the phone to a friend of mine, and he was like, "Oh, I'd love to sneak you in a McDonald's and stuff like that." I'm like, "Don't talk about sneaking stuff in. You're coming for a visit in about 2 weeks' time, you idiot."
That's incredible. Neil, we're obviously, unfortunately, we're running out of time because it's been absolutely amazing talking to you both. One other thing, I was umming and ahhing about asking this, and if you've watched any of our pods, you'll know that always ask a question.
Strap yourself in.
Ask a question at the end of each pod. And don't be offended, Sharon, but I think this has got to be a question for Neil because I think it's really...
No, both.
Well, okay then, that's fine. Really relevant.
Who we can ask first?
Well,
I think we should ask Sharon.
All right, let's ask Sharon. Well, no, I don't want Neil to have time to think about it. That's all. No.
Should we get one or two and leave?
No.
Just
Neil.
ask Neil.
What is your definition of love, Neil?
Ooh, that's a good one. I tell you what, since I've been out, obviously, I love obviously my relationship with my kids. Absolutely love my kids beyond anything. But since I've been out, I've actually met someone else.
Amazing.
And she's been through a really difficult time, but I've obviously been through a really difficult time as well. And I've, for the first time in my life, sort of entering a relationship with nothing. Like literally, I walked out the gates of the prison with like 82 quid in my pocket, like you do. And I met someone literally a week later. Just I wasn't even. That was lowest down on my priority list on everything. I need to sort of get my life together. But actually, I've met someone right at the perfect time because now we're kind of building something together, and it's she knows everything, and yeah, we're just on a complete good path with that. And I'd say that would be my definition of love.
Yeah, that just kind of just starting. Yeah, to start a journey together where there's no lies, there's no expectations, there's no
preconception of anything.
no nothing.
Yeah, and I've kind of been, she's just taken I've entered that relationship me as me. There's no, the person with a business. I know this. I'm like, I've walked out with nothing. So it's like entering a relationship in the right way, purely as me, and equally on her
Must
side
make
as
you
well.
feel
So
great
it's brilliant
as well.
Yeah, it does. And it's like, because I was, I kind of thought about how people would see me or view that kind of past and stuff like that. And it's not been an issue for her or her family, everything. It's just been really, really, really good. So yeah, that would be my definition of love.
Fantastic.
Didn't expect anything like that. And
No.
thank you very much to both of you.
Thank you.
I didn't know what to expect. Obviously, we'd spoke to you, Sharon. This like fair play to both of you, especially yourself, Neil, for being so sort of open.
I
really,
think you
just
can be...
just laying it all out there and clearly not being worried whatsoever about what anybody knows. I tell you, it's a sort of testament, I think, partly to the journey that you've been on with Storybook Dads.
Yeah, no, definitely. And what's happened in the past has happened. I'd rather talk about it, deal with it, and just be open and honest about it. And that's the way I kind of deal with everything now. So
I think you're a phenomenal case study, Neil. I hate to say that, but of someone that's been through the system as and I know it's, I don't know, but I'm reading between the lines. It's obviously not been easy, but you're here. You've started a new relationship. You've got a relationship with your kids still, and hey, onwards and upwards from here. And you've got a great headset as well.
Yeah. Look like an air traffic controller.
Yeah, it's all good. Thank you both of you so much. Yes. Really, really appreciate it.
No,
thank you very much.
We'll see you soon.
Thank
you.
Cheers. Bye.